Okay, hi everyone. Everyone was muted, so I'll go ahead and see if I can introduce Lily and Tim. Let me just put the slide on again. Okay, I hope you can see this now. So hello again, everyone. We're back in the final session of today. And this time it's a non-technical bit of training, and it's going to be presented by Grout-Smith and Lily Poberezhska. I hope I'm pronouncing it right.
Correct.
Both of them have a long history in interacting with general media. They were both BBC reporters. They have plenty of experience in this, and but I hope by the end of this, all of you guys are able to report your research on a BBC report. So with that aim in mind, I'd like to hand over to Lily and team.
Sorry, Christos. I can't see the share content button is not active.
So I'll soon pass the ball to you.
All right, but everybody will be able to hear Tim as well, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So Lily, you should be able to share now.
Mm-hmm. Tim, are you there? Tim,
you need to unmute if you want to speak.
Tim?
So there's a button to unmute towards the...
Okay, there we go. How's that? Is that better?
Yeah.
Yes,
good. I think now there's a problem of low BW. I don't have your sound. What is BW?
I think maybe your connection is a bit slow, but it's okay. I think we just go ahead.
Mm-hmm. My connection is a bit slow, you think?
Yeah, bandwidth. Yeah, your bandwidth is a bit slow.
Yes, I'm sorry. It's my upload speed in the afternoon gets a bit.
No problem.
Sorry, I hope you'll be able to hear me. Okay, just 1 second. Let me go to just 1 second. PowerPoint and right. Okay. Okay, so I'll start sharing content. Okay, so.
Hello, everyone. This is us, Media Players International. We're just a small partnership, and as Christoph said, from ex-BBC background, but been doing this kind of training for quite a while now. So we usually do this in a day. So this is an hour and a half truncated version for you. So we hope you get enough out of it.
Right.
We're now looking at our relationship with the media, the relationship between you and the media, and what you want from it, what they want from it, and how to make that work.
Yeah. All right, so I hope you can hear me well now. Tim, can you hear me?
I can, yep.
Okay, good. Right. So, your relationship with the media, we know that any happy relationship in real life involves some kind of a compromise, and your relationship with the media is no exception from this rule. It will always be a compromise between what they want from you and what you want from them. So first we'll talk about what they want from you, because like you, they are professionals who want to do their job well, and a lot of frustration between, in the relationship between academics and the media, which comes from the academic side. It usually comes from not really understanding properly what the journalists need to do their job well. Because if you do understand what they need from you, you will be able to give it to them, and they will be much gentler with you. Now we just want to break bad news to you. The bad news is that journalists don't care about your research or your work unless there's a story there. So if there is a story in the way they understand it, a media story there, in your research, or maybe in an aspect of your research, it doesn't have to be the whole research or your research in its entirety. So if there is a story there, they're going to cover it. If they can't see that there is a story, they won't. So what the journalists want, just 1 second. what makes a good story?
That's what they're looking for, a good story. Now, we need to know, for your understanding, what makes a good story. Now, you know, because you're members of the audience. Journalists work for you. So you actually know what makes a good story, what makes you click on one site, or one story on a website, or listen to one radio news item in a bulletin. What attracts you to those things, to those particular stories? Well, first of all, it's the relevance. Obviously, the more relevant the story is, the bigger the audience, and so the journalists are happy with that. And relevance is all sorts of things. It's obviously your money, your health, the education of your children, those practical things, but also things like cultural interests or sports interests, football teams, cricket teams, ballet, all those kind of things that we are interested in. Those are all part of our relevance, what makes things relevant to us.
And actually what you do is extremely relevant to all of us, because we can't survive without the internet, and without good internet connections and good mobile internet connections. And the Internet of Things is coming, hopefully, soon. So what you do, you're trying to improve these connections, improve the connectivity for people who already have it, but also provide it to probably quite large areas of the globe where it's not available. So what you do is definitely relevant to a large number of people. And in that sense, you're quite lucky, because journalists should be interested in what you do.
So second point, topicality. Why now? Well, that's something you can tie into as well. I mean, the internet is hugely important now because of lockdowns around the world. So many more people are going online, older people using it for socializing and so on. So in a way, you're very topical as well, because you're helping us improve our connectivity, and that's what we all need to do in times of lockdown. So topicality works for you too.
Then this is a very important element of what makes a good story for journalists, because journalists are always kind of accused of going after sensations. Yeah, of course they do. This is one of the biggest things that they go for. I mean, sensational is probably a slightly negative word, but we can also call it something different, something unusual, maybe unique or unprecedented, cutting edge technology, the wow factor, or maybe even something quirky. When we heard from your submissions to us about tethered drones, to be honest, it brought a smile to my face, because I thought, wow, I mean, this is really unusual. I never thought that the drones could be on a leash, like a dog, or like a kite. So this is quite unusual and not something that a lot of people know about. But also, journalists love extremes or superlatives. It's the biggest, the greatest, the smallest, the worst, the best, the fastest, if we talk maybe about internet speeds, these kind of things. Then the next element is not something the journalists are particularly loved for, and it's controversy, conflict, even scandal. So hopefully there will be nothing scandalous in what you do and in the impact of your research. But controversy is something that journalists are trained to spot. They are trained to be devil's advocates, and they usually ask people, other interviewees, quite probing questions, because it probably it helps them to reveal the essence of this story to their audiences. And the most important thing is not to start bristling or not to get upset if you get a rather kind of probing, maybe slightly controversial or even slightly aggressive from your perspective from a journalist. And because this is their job, they're just doing their job. of course, they usually reserve the most kind of aggressive and maybe even hostile questioning for politicians, because politicians never answer questions, as you know. They try to be as evasive as possible. So hopefully you are not going to get this kind of questioning in your media interviews. But just in case you may get one, later on we'll introduce a technique that may help you to cope with aggressive, sometimes even hostile questions, and not just in the media situation, but maybe even at your academic gatherings. So we'll tackle it a bit later.
Then we've got human interest, celebrities. Now, human interest, that's really populating your story with real people. So little anecdotes about how your connectivity helped, start up small companies in remote areas or something. Little vignettes like that, little stories help us engage with what can sometimes be a bit technical, a bit difficult to understand. But if you can bring in an example of how your work affects people, how it liberates communities to do things, or makes things possible that were previously not possible, then that's going to be great. That's going to be attracting us. The audience is going to help us understand your work. So try to think of good examples, good little anecdotes about the people involved in your work. And of course, it's also about you. The human interest is you too. People want to see you and hear you, see how you react, what sort of person you are. So that helps you to position yourself. You need to look as though you're happy to be there and pleased to answer the questions. That's going to help communicate. People like people who smile at them, and generally don't like people who frown at them. So don't frown, don't show you're nervous or anxious about your position being interviewed. Smile and enjoy it, and try and communicate that interest and enthusiasm you have for your work to the journalist.
Even if you're doing a radio interview, people will hear it in your voice. So if you are smiling when you are giving an interview, then it will make it easier for people to listen to this interview. So your personality is important in any broadcast interview, be it television or video or radio. So then the next one is quite obvious, and you're lucky because you have it. Opinions are very cheap these days. We can opine a lot on social media. They provide a great platform for people to express their opinions, no matter how kind of mad they can be. But you have an advantage over them. You have expertise. You've been doing your research for a number of years. So when someone may opine that 5G networks spread coronavirus, right, on social media, but you are an expert. You don't just have opinions. You have facts, and you have statistics that help you prove your point. So
sorry,
here. So,
go ahead.
Yeah, and I just want you to pay attention to the word killer facts and statistics. By killer, we mean only those facts and stats that help you tell your story and get your message across. So we recently came across a wonderful quote from Voltaire, who was a famous wit of his time. And he said the best way to be boring is to leave nothing out. The media is the opposite of boring, and journalists didn't go into this profession to be bored. They usually have a very low boredom threshold. So the media is about the memorable, it's about the exciting, it's not about boring. So if you, and we understand, for academics, it's always a bit of a problem, and we understand why, because all your caveats, all these details are very important to you, but you've got to be very strict with yourselves And what you leave out of your interview is as important as what you keep in. So this is a very important thing to remember. So you wanted to mention?
Yes, I was just going to say that killer facts and statistics, it helps enormously the journalist if you can prepare on your computers a fact file giving the basic facts about your area of research. These killer facts, you know, how it's going to change the situation, how it can improve the environment by reducing energy use and so on. If you can bring a few of those facts together, put them in a file and send them to the journalist when they start to contact you about writing or doing an interview with you, it helps enormously for them to get their head around it, because what you're doing is cutting edge. They won't be experts in it. They need a bit of help. So if you can put down a framing sort of a set of facts about what you're doing in understandable language, you know, then it helps them enormously and you'll get a better interview out of it. They'll also be very impressed and think that you are a very useful contact because you know what they want and can help them provide it.
But also one of the problems for you is that many media outlets had to cut their staff quite a lot. And some of them still have, I mean, bigger ones, they still have technology correspondents, but others don't. And most journalists actually are arts and humanities graduates. So if you send something to them, it could be actually your official press release. If you have a special, you know, press department at the company or wherever you're working at the university, they may help you. They may help you with that. But not only journalists, most journalists don't understand technical details and have a very vague idea about all the kind of differences between 4G, 5G networks, etc., etc. But they're also incredibly busy, because journalists are very, very busy these days because of the internet. They have the volume of work that they have to do today is probably 3 times as big as what they were asked or expected to do 20 years ago. So they simply don't have enough time to research properly your topic before the interview. And that's why what Tim said is very important. Give them enough information to ask you intelligent questions, but that information has to be written and provided for them in understandable, non-specialist terms, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So now we can go further down. So this is, so let's go back to this slide again. So this what makes a good story for journalists. Relevance to the audience, the most important thing, how relevant it is for them, for their everyday lives. Topicality, why cover it now? Because it chimes with the current concerns of the public, or because something happened in the maybe 5G kind of world, maybe something which is not completely related to what you are doing, but you can provide a new angle to this topic, and that's what journalists would welcome. Then something different, unusual, unique, sensational, unprecedented. You know, probably the saying, you may have heard about it, when the dog bites a man, that's not a story. When a man bites a dog, that's a story. And any kinds of extremes of superlatives, controversy, conflict, scandal, human interest, and then your expertise, your killer facts and stats. And of course, you know, your stories will not have all these elements. You won't be able to tick all these boxes, but you need to probably emphasize maybe relevance, how topical it is, how important it is now and will be in the future for all of us, but also maybe the unusual, unique aspect of what you do. Yeah, I mean, in terms of controversy, you know, journalists, they know that you are technical experts, you work on the technical side of it, but journalists can easily ask you about some political controversial aspects of it, like, for instance, the whole Huawei, right? aspect of it and controversy around it and the use of their equipment in 5G networks. So you may be asked these kind of questions, and you probably should be prepared for them. Okay, so when you are presenting or when you are asked to do an interview, think, along these lines. We can send these slides, by the way, to Elena Gatti, and then she can distribute them among you. So think about it. You need to bring at least some of the elements of a good story out in your presentation during your media interviews.
Now, if we look at what journalists don't like, that this complexity is a big one. Now, of course, your work is enormously complex, but your role in the terms of an interview is to make it simple, is to be a guide, not show us how complicated the mess of wires is there, but to take us on a path through those wires, help us understand what's important, significant, exciting, and new about your work. But don't baffle us with too much detail. Remember, we are not specialists and you are. You've got to make the bridge to help us understand it.
But also to understand the limits of what the general public can understand in your topic and how deep you should go into technical details. And this is very, very important indeed, not to overload your interviews with technical detail, not making it too complex.
Of course, if you are working for, New Scientist or something, you can afford to be more, if you're being interviewed by them, you can afford to be more detailed. But for the general public, do try hard to make it understandable to them and not baffle them with wavelengths and megahertz and so on. It's too complicated for them.
Right. Okay. So now simplification is inevitable. And this is something that you simply need to reconcile yourselves with, because this is the first rule of journalism that was formulated by journalists themselves. First simplify, then exaggerate. So,
we should say this is tongue-in-cheek, by the way. They are joking about it. I mean, this is how you might characterize them if you were being wicked.
Yeah.
But it does contain an element of truth because you do have to simplify. Let them exaggerate, but you're the one who should do the simplification, not them, because they make mistakes. They won't understand it. So you need to guide us and be the simplifier in this context.
Then the next thing that journalists don't like is your academic or technical jargon. So your jargon is the biggest barrier between you and the rest of humanity. And it's quite difficult, we appreciate it, it's quite difficult for scientists to stop using their jargon, because you mostly talk about what you do with your colleagues. So speaking about it in non-academic language can be a challenge, but that is something that needs to be done. And if you feel that you absolutely have to mention a technical term, please do explain it straight away what it means. So this is hugely important. And what we would recommend to do is to find yourself, if you are serious about media engagement, or if you know that this is something that is requested of you, then find yourself a human guinea pig. And by human guinea pig, we mean your friend or your relative who has got nothing to do with what you do and is not an expert in your field, and just try to explain to them what you do, and they will stop you when they feel that you start using too much of the technical jargon. So that will be a good idea. So now we just want to introduce a little interactive element here. And this is what an academic came up with when she was asked to write the title of her thesis in non-academic language. So we think that you can do better. Can you translate it into non-academic language. Can those of you who are interactively enabled, can you unmute yourself and tell us how that can be, the same idea can be expressed in less academic language?
And in fewer words, please, too.
Mm-hmm. Hello?
I'm listening. We are listening, I guess, but well, it's very complicated, I think.
Well, it's a very complicated sentence, but what it's conveying is quite easy, we think, to put into simple English.
Yeah.
Eating well helps you learning.
Thank you.
Yes.
We're getting there.
Eating well helps learning. Good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Even shorter. Try to use verbs. Verbs make everything sound dynamic.
Instead of eating, we could go to eat. Eat well.
And? Come on, you can do it.
Eat well and? Education is learning. Eat well.
Learn and learn better. Yeah, okay, Jorge, good. Eat well, learn better, or simply eat well, learn well. Yeah?
And you see, the key to that is that, as Lily said, it's the verbs. In this example here, you've got the smallest verb in the English language, is. The rest of it is these heavy, sticky nouns and adjectives, which you're conscious of the effort of thinking through. Whereas you say, eat well, learn well, it's so simple. The language is so clear. It goes in straight away without you even realizing you're thinking. You know immediately what is meant by it. Eat well, learn well. The two things are balanced. Whereas optimum nutrition, physiological way, it's really difficult to go through. So
and sana in corpore sana. Yeah? That works too.
Although it's not quite eating, is it? It's a healthy body, but yeah.
Yes.
But yes, keeping it short and in clear language is really important to make good communication with a journalist. This heavy language, these long words are very difficult to process when you're listening or watching on TV. It's not easy to understand. You want conversational language. Aim for the conversational language that's clear. That's the thing you've got to do. And why we go on about this is because when you're under stress and an interview is stressful, you're a bit nervous, your brain isn't thinking quite so well. And what comes into your mind first, of course, is your technical jargon. So you're likely to throw in, megapixels, bandwidth, or whatever, and these clog up everyone else's perceptions. You know what they mean because it's your jargon, but the rest of us don't. So please be careful of using things that come straight into your head, these block phrases. They are the opposite of communication. They distance us from you. We don't understand what they are. We don't know what your acronyms are, BMPs, UPIs, and so on. They don't mean anything to us. So beware of getting these big block phrases of your jargon into your head just because you're nervous.
Good. So now on to the next thing that journalists don't like and ideally you should avoid. Sorry.
This is
getting that our previous, yeah. So please speak fluent human. It's a wonderful expression that was coined by a British journalist, and he was talking about a politician who surprised him because he said that he was one of the few politicians who could speak fluent human. So you're not politicians, and we hope that it will be much easier for you to speak fluent human. Good. So now the next thing that you should be avoiding in media interviews is bland generalities, also known as waffle. It's a wonderful English word. Waffle is just talking about nothing. So the media wants the specifics. It doesn't like generalities. And journalists get incredibly frustrated and sometimes very irritable when academics talk in generalities. In your media interviews, you don't have the time for long introductions. Just go straight to the point, and even better, give an example straight away. Because examples really bring your stories alive. and help people understand what you do, because what you do is fairly complicated and technical.
It's often very useful to, when you're explaining your work, to say, look, the problem here is X, and my research will alter that, will improve that by providing Y. If you set out the problem, which most of us non-technical people don't really understand, we just know, well, it hasn't happened, why isn't it happening? If you say, well, it doesn't happen because we can't provide enough coverage, the electricity isn't there, and so on. If you set out the problem and then say what you're doing to improve that problem, that helps us. It's an easy story for us to follow. But that's quite a good template, I think, for you. How am I going to explain myself? Well, what's the problem? This is the problem, and this is what I'm doing. That makes it clear for us too.
Right. Okay. So now another thing that journalists don't like is lies and evasion. So we are sure that you are honest academics, you're not going to lie, but you may be put in a situation, especially in a live interview, where you are asked a question that you simply don't know the answer to. And that may happen not because journalists are so bloody-minded and they do it on purpose, but journalists usually assume that your expertise is wider than the, say, the narrow topic of your research. And by the way, you remember that slide, the media story, it's not about your research, it's about a story. So even, the question is not about your research, right? But you know that someone else did a study and has evidence, or findings that can answer that question. Quote somebody else's research, because I'm saying it again, the media story is not about your research, it's about a story. But, it may happen that you don't know any other study that may answer these questions. So you can't lie and pretend that you do have an answer. But equally bad to say, this is not what my research is about, next question, or something like that. It's not a good idea. It won't reflect very well on you. But what you can do is say, I'm afraid I don't know the answer to this particular question, but what I can tell you, and tell them something something relevant to the topic, something that you have prepared when you were preparing for your media interview. So just keep the conversation going, and nobody will remember that you didn't know an answer to a question, but people will remember that you gave them some useful information, and the journalist will be pleased, and the audience will be pleased as well. So another awkward situation may arise when you've answered the question, and then the journalist says, but what about that research that was done, say, at MIT and was published yesterday and says exactly the opposite? And your jaw drops in a live interview. So we would recommend, before your live interview, or not even a live interview, maybe even a pre-recorded one, to Google the topic of the interview in news. Because that's, if journalists have any time for research, that's what they will be doing. They will be looking at the media coverage of this topic. So even if you don't have the time to read the whole study, you could at least read the summary to be aware that someone has come up with completely different findings. So, yeah. Now,
these are questions that we already said journalists very often don't know much about your subject. So they tend to fall back on stock questions. So this, how much does it cost, is a natural one for them. Follow the money. One of the things you may need to think about when you're considering this question is, well, if we don't do it our way, it's going to cost a lot more. Actually, it is expensive, but it's going to be a lot cheaper than doing it the conventional way. That's quite a nice balance to get. So if you can find those figures or estimate the figures, that will really help sell your story and persuade people that this is good research. The when will it be ready one, they're not asking for, 3 o'clock on Friday. They're asking for a time frame. You might have to say, well, I'm afraid it's going to be months rather than weeks, or, it's going to be at least 5 years as far as we can see. Just give them a time frame. The who's to blame one goes straight to this controversy. Why hasn't this happened? What's going wrong? Very unwise to blame specific people. It's a very complex problem. This is the sort of answer. Don't blame specific governments. You'll get into all sorts of trouble that way. Politicians often fight dirty and hold the purse strings. So just try and not fall into that trap. And the what should we do now? They're not asking for a kind of route map. They just want to know, well, how are we pursuing, your idea sounds great, but what are the steps towards it? What are we going to do? Or if you've just found a new discovery that shakes things up, they may want to know, well, which avenue should we pursue? What do you think is the best way forward? You don't have to peg yourself to a route map again. Just say, well, one of the most interesting avenues arising out of this is this one, or one that interests me. It's just to be ready to answer these quite predictable questions in an easy fashion.
Okay, so we have been talking about what the journalists want from you, so you know what the elements of a good story mean for them, and you should emphasize these elements, bring them out in your media interviews, but we have also covered what you should be avoiding in your media interviews. So it's too academic language, too much complexity, being evasive. So now we are going to talk about your side of the bargain, right? You remember the compromise. So you don't do media engagement just out of the goodness of your heart. You do it for a reason. Maybe the company that you work for, they want to publicize some of the new technology that they have developed. Maybe it will be good for your academic career. You want to kind of put yourself on the academic. There are all sorts of reasons. Or maybe you simply want to share your expertise and knowledge with the general public. That's enough reason. So it will be a big mistake if you go into a media situation in a passive mode, because it will be a missed opportunity for you to get your message across to thousands, hundreds of thousands, even millions of people, if it's a big media outlet with a very large audience. So you've got to be very clear what you want to get across in the interview. The journalists, they have their own agendas, and it's quite legitimate for you to have your own agenda.
Yes, don't be passive. Know what you want to get out of it, and don't be bashful about saying it. Much easier, actually, for the journalist to deal with somebody who knows what they want to say, what they think is important. Oh, good, then we can contest it. Then somebody says, oh, well, yes, please just ask me questions, anything you want. The journalist is kind of lost. But if there is a definite perception that this person has a message and wants to get things out to us, then we can have a discussion around that. That's the sort of person they like to work with.
So the upshot of it is that you should never do media interviews unprepared for all sorts of reasons. You really need to gather your thoughts and to be very clear what you want to impart to the journalist's audience. So before we get down to that, how you prepare for media interviews, just a couple of words about how interviews judged by the audience, because ultimately it's the audience that you want to get through. Journalist is just a channel. So people will judge your interview, first of all, by what you say. Of course, the content of your interview is important, how you talk about things, how well you selected the material for the interview. Of course, the journalist is going to help you, hopefully. So what you say is important, but that's not all of it. Equally important is how you say it. Your personality in broadcast interviews is incredibly important, because you must have experienced it yourself so many times when you watch someone talk about something or listen maybe to a radio interview, and what this person says makes perfect sense. But there is something about his or her personality that you don't quite like, or it doesn't inspire confidence. And then you stop listening or watching. So your personality is very important, and you probably want to come across as someone who is authoritative and credible, but also friendly and happy. This is so important. And I will repeat it again. Happy to be there and share this information for the public. Because if you sound and look like you'd rather be in the dentist chair than giving a media interview, then we feel your pain and will turn you off. So try to be as kind of friendly and enthusiastic about what you do as possible. And then the third element of it is also incredibly important. It's how well you understand your audience, whether you are on the same wavelength with your audience, how well you gauge their level of knowledge about the topic, which is very important, and not to make it too complicated for them. You don't want to patronize people, but on the other hand, if you're not sure how much people understand, it's best to err on the side of caution and explain maybe too much rather than too little. Then also how well you understand the needs of your audience in the context of this topic. So how much of them is relevant to them, and then you can drop the rest, if you see what I mean. So again, it being quite strict with yourselves about what you leave out of your interview, but also their concerns, maybe about the safety of equipment you are developing, or maybe the cost, but also some prejudices, because again, I mean, this completely barmy conspiracy theory about 5G networks spreading coronavirus, unfortunately, a lot of people believe it, so it's real. I mean, the prejudice is real, so this is something that maybe you need to confront. And if you understand their concerns, their needs, and even their prejudices, then you can tackle them head on, even without waiting for the journalists to raise these issues. So you can raise them yourselves and just answer all these potential questions.
So if we move on then to how you prepare yourself, how you get yourself ready for the interview. Preparing your messages. Now, message sounds a very sort of PR word, but in our context, we think it's very simple. It's simply the points you want to remember after the interview is over, and not more than 3. That's very important, and we would suggest that if you're just starting your glittering media careers, don't be ambitious. Just have one message, but make sure you get it over, because believe us, it's incredibly difficult. Most of our trainees say at the first attempt, they completely forgot about their message and they just answered the questions, which is, after all, the natural thing to do. But you want to get something out of this interview too, and that means you want to put your points over, and you want the audience to remember them afterwards. So what is a good message?
So a good message should be clear and short, which is not easy for academics at all. But it has to be clear and short, and it will be much better if you write it down or type it. But writing it down is actually better because the motor memory will help you remember it. So, and also if you're doing it just in your mind, in your head, you're likely to be quite vague and not definitive. You'll say, oh, my first message will be about, well, I don't know, about something. This is not a message. So the message is, I'm sorry, I'm looking at your interview questions and I'm trying to create a message. Like the software that we are developing will be able to cut the carbon footprint of 5G networks by 3/4. I mean, that's a message, right? Because it's quite definitive. So clear and short. Then there's another trick here. Not every message can be done like this, but ideally, a good message should incorporate one of your important points and one of the audience's needs or values. For example, our unique and clean technology will reduce your energy bills, right? So in the first part of this message, you pat yourself on the back, you know, because you kind of praise the success of your technology and how wonderful it is. And in the second one, you tackle this, so what's in it for me question, right? So not only it's unique and clean, and I'm a wonderful scientist, but it will also help you reduce your energy bill. So it's a win-win message. Not every message can be crafted in this way, but if you can, it will be wonderful. Then a good message should be expressed in the language which is appropriate for your audience. So please leave your acronyms and technical language out of it. And finally,
supporting evidence, these killer facts that we were talking about. Because as it says there, an assertion isn't proof. If you claim this is going to reduce the carbon footprint by 3/4, as Lily gave an example, you have to say how it's going to do that, because we can, and you know, because you will be, if you make an assertion, the journalist is likely to provoke you and say, well, what's your evidence for that? Surely that's pie in the sky. Is there any evidence this really can happen? So you must have those facts, because if you don't, your authority is shot and you've kind of wasted the interview. So these killer facts need to be gathered. But you've already been gathering killer facts, if you remember, to send to the journalist, so they should be in your head. These are the things that make people sit up and say, wow, that is significant. Gosh, that's important. This is really good stuff they're doing.
Good. So now let's assume that you have prepared your message or a couple of messages, and they're absolutely wonderful. They meet all the criteria of a good message, and so you're very pleased with yourself. But there's a little problem here, because journalists are not obliged to ask you questions that will lead you to your message. And you're not going to get all the questions in advance, especially in live interviews, for a very good reason. Again, not because journalists want to corner you, they're so bloody-minded, although some of them are, but they want their interviews to sound like a conversation. If they provide all the questions to you in advance, then you may over-prepare and probably type your answers and try to learn them, and the interview will sound very stilted and very boring. And journalists do not want boring. So if you try, before the interview, try to find out what the perspective is going to be, or the angle, as journalists call it, on the topic. But they are not going, they may give you a couple of questions, but not all of them. So what do? You are determined to deliver your message, but you don't know what the questions are going to be. So there is a very simple technique, which is called bridging. That's why you can see this strangely contorted man on the right-hand side. And it may help you to deliver your message or messages regardless of the questions that you are asked. So it's also called ABC. It's a mnemonic to help you remember it. So first of all, if you are asked a question that is not related to your message and you want to deliver the message, then the first thing to do is to answer or address the question that you've been asked, even if it has nothing to do with your message. So address is a better word here, because address means answer the question briefly. If you start as an honest academic, if you start answering this question in great detail, then I can promise you that you will forget about your message altogether. So don't brush this question away, which is not related to your message, because even politicians don't do it anymore. It's very rude and counterproductive, just address it briefly. Address, I mean, you can say, yes, I think you're absolutely right, or yes, these things did occur somewhere, you know, or a number of times during our experiments or whatever it is. And then do B. B stands for construct a verbal link to your message. And C stands for communicate the message that you want to get over. So
the bridging here, a bridge is something we all do in conversation all the time. You want, you know, the conversation is getting dull, you want to put yourself forward, so you say, that's interesting because it reminds me of what happened to me yesterday, and I'm the most important person in this conversation, so I'm damn well going to tell you. So these bridges are naturally, you know, we use them all the time without even realizing. But it also fits in your role. Remember, you're the guide through a complex subject. So if you say, yes, but we've got to remember that in all of this, the most important thing is da-da-da-da, you know, building that bridge there. It's what we expect of you. You're the expert, you're the guide. You tell us what's important. So you are perfectly entitled to bridge away from something and tell us what you think is significant. So it fits in very well, very easily in your role as an interviewee.
Okay, so we have prepared a very crude demonstration how this bridging can be done. So Tim has a message that he is determined to deliver regardless of my questions. So Tim, what's your message?
My message is that bird watching is the best hobby you could have. Good for the body, good for the mind.
Right. So, okay. Tim, you spend an awful lot of time bird watching. Why?
Well, because I think it's the best hobby you could have. It's an outdoor pursuit, fresh air and exercise, obviously very good for you, but you don't just stare into the middle distance and go vacant. You're keeping your mind occupied by looking at these gorgeous creatures, analyzing them. Have you identified them? Well, huge number of questions there, of course, the light, plumage, seasonality, and all these kind of things. Then what about their behavior? Has that behavior ever been recorded before? Are they prey? Are they predator? How are they engaging in the environment? You know, a whole host of questions to keep your mind occupied while your body's exercising. Really hard to think of anything better, isn't it?
So you see, Tim had it easy this time around, and because my question led him straight to his message. So now let's make it more complicated for him. Tim, what's your favorite holiday destination?
Oh, I think that's Spain's Costa d'Anyana, a lovely area in the south of Spain, Andalusia, all the great historic cities, Seville and Cadiz and so on to visit, lovely beaches and good weather down there, and actually also a surprising range of birds. There's everything from this almost mythical bird, the Andalusian hemipode, which hardly anybody's ever seen, but you might, right down to those colourful creatures like the roller and the beat, great flashes of colour in the environment there. So it's a wonderful place to go because bird watching is such a good hobby, so refreshing and stimulating. Go down there, get a bit of bird watching in. It's the perfect holiday.
So you see, the question had absolutely nothing to do with birds, but he was determined to deliver his message, and he ultimately bridged to it and delivered it. So let's make it even more complicated for him. Tim, you've been a journalist for 25 years, so what kept you going?
Well, I think as any journalist will tell you, it's the people you meet. You know, you meet lots of interesting people from all walks of life in all areas of the world. I've been very lucky traveling from Brazil to Bangladesh, Ethiopia, China, Russia, all sorts of extraordinary places. Not always easy to work in, of course. I mean, the Gobi Desert sounds terribly exotic, but actually it's a very gritty place to work in, not easy at all. And similarly, the slums of Sao Paulo have lots of stories, but it's a pretty dangerous place to be. But I always found, you know, in the slums of a city and the wastes of a desert, I had an extra resource, and that's bird watching. You can do it anywhere. There is always something to look for, something to find out, something to observe and take your mind away from the sort of grim realities you're facing. Such a good resource. I think that was really my ultimate resource that kept me going through journalism.
So you see where we started and where we got to. So you can build several bridges, but you know, if they lead you to your message, that's absolutely fine. I mean, of course, you know, that was not a very serious example, but we hope that it gave you some idea how it can be done. So now you may remember that we promised to introduce a technique that may help you to deal with hostile or aggressive or difficult questions. We are going to play out the same situation with bird watching. We are not going to reveal it to you straight away. We need your help and some interactivity from you. So we'll play out the same situation with birds, and I will ask Tim an aggressive question, and we want you to tell us what he did to deal with this situation and deliver his message in the end. And I will give you a little clue that the most important thing is at the very start of his answer. Okay. Tim, we have information from very reliable sources that during your BBC assignment to Kota Danyana, you spent most of your time bird watching rather than working on the series of political reports that you were sent there to do. So how can you possibly justify to the BBC license fee payers?
Well, I think the question here is about the quality of my reports. Now, I did all the reports from that conference I was asked to do, and I think I did them well. They certainly got the best response on the BBC website that month. A lot of people wrote in to say they liked the way I handled what was actually a very difficult conference to cover, very fractious, lots of cross-currents, misinformation, and so on. I did go bird watching. I make no bones about it, because I think the two things are intimately connected. When I had legitimate free time in the breaks in the conference, instead of going down to the bar to relax with my journalist colleagues, I went out in the fresh air, away from this underground conference center, subterranean conference torture center, out into the fresh air, took my mind completely away from it, watched this wonderful array of birds they have there, took my mind completely away from all the wrangling. I came back refreshed, and I did a better job. I don't think there's any doubt about it. When the going gets tough, go bird watching, and you won't regret it.
So what did he do? We welcome your input in any form, through chat or unmute your microphones, please. What did he do? Hello?
Anyone else?
No, I mean, I think he was trying to turn the situation on his favor, like justifying what he did, and trying to link the question with the message again, but like trying to put the situation, the main message, to justify the question.
Do you remember the first thing he said? I was clearing my mind to have a better output. What is that? Do you remember what he said? Does anyone remember?
Yes, I think he said that I have done my duty well, something like that. He was just defended that he has done his what he have to do, and then he said that so as he has done his duties, he can do other things besides that.
Right. So we'll remind you. Okay. So he said his first phrase was.
I think the question here is about the quality of my reports. Now, remember, she'd asked me in a very spiky, nasty way, how can you possibly justify this? We have information from very reliable sources. This is all very aggressive language, barbed, making me get upset. I might well have sort of banged the table and said, who is this reliable source? It's absolute rubbish. It's that man from the Telegraph. I've never trusted him. You get het up about nothing, about the wrong thing. What I did was focus in on what the essential charge is here. What did I do wrong? I wasted my time bird watching instead of working. So was the quality of my reports good? Yes, I can prove it was.
That's what, I mean, as Albert has just written. He first brought forward the key point about the quality of his report. Absolutely. So my aggressive question, the aim of it was to upset Tim, so that the interview went on in this confrontational manner, right? But it wasn't in Tim's interest, and it won't be in your interest. So the main thing is to calm the situation down and take control of the interview in the sense that you change the tone of the interview. And he zoomed into my question for a second and thought, okay, if we strip her question of its deliberate aggression, provocation, and hostility. What is she really implying? And I was implying that either he hasn't done his job at all, or if he has done his job, he didn't do it very well. So, and then he, after that, after he had it very clear in his head, he rephrased my deliberately aggressive question in non-confrontational neutral language. And after that, he said, I think the question here is about the quality of my reports. And that allowed him to continue the interview in a completely different way, and basically undermine what the journalist was trying to do. So if we look at it on the slide, call it taking the sting out of the aggressive question. If you are unlucky enough to get this kind of question, so think for a second, what is the journalist really implying there? How can I rephrase it in neutral language? And this rephrased question better started with, I think the question here, there's a magic phrase, I think the question here is, right? So this rephrased question provides a very useful buffer between the aggressive question and the rest of your answer. And after that, he did our ABC. He addressed the question. He said, actually, I did all the reports that I was sent there to do, and they were good. He provided supporting evidence saying that it got good feedback on the BBC website. And then he bridged to his message, and he said, I think it's precisely because I went bird watching, my reports were so good because I kind of took my mind off all these wranglings in the conference, went out for a walk, watched wonderful birds, and my reports were even better for it. So it all looks very nice and simple and colorful here. It's not easy to do it in a stressful situation of a media interview, but it is possible. And it's a very, very useful technique. Just neutralize it. Remember the phrase, I think the question here, don't say the real question is, journalists hate it, and it's like a red rag to the bull for them. So just make this buffer sound very kind of calm and innocuous, and don't frown, please, because if you frown, then you will give away, if it's a TV interview, it will give your real feeling away. So you may feel that you want to punch the journalist because it's so unfair, but please don't do that. So that's it. So I think that's the end of our theoretical part. And now we would like to interview a couple of you. So, so we have prepared 4 interviews for Nitin, Babu, Eloise, then Arjan and Mashid. So,
do we have Nitin here? Is Nitin or Nitin?
Yeah, I'm here.
Good.
Okay. Can you reveal yourself?
Always good to see the person we're interviewing, if we can.
Hello.
Can we see your face?
I mean, I'm in video now.
Ah, wonderful. Hi.
Hi, both.
Okay, good. So, Tim, would you like to do the
Yes, I'll start the interview. Just a few words on where to look. This is very important. We're doing what we call a down-the-line interview now. So it's important to look into your camera rather than down at your screen, if you can. Look up at the camera, because that gives the right perspective, the right visual grammar. If you're looking away when you're saying it's very important, you don't engage with us. So try and keep as much eye contact with the camera directly as you can. Okay.
But you know, if you are sharing the same space with the interviewer,
yes.
right? If you come to the studio, for instance, or they come to you, to your lab, then you should maintain eye contact with the interviewer most of the time, and then it will look right to us. But in this case, in the so-called down-the-line interview that everyone is doing during the lockdown, then you've got to look at the camera at all times. Okay, so Nitin, can we see you?
Yeah.
Where are you? I haven't.
There you are.
Oh,
Good.
can you see him, Lil? That's
Yes.
good. I don't think I can. I don't know why. Perhaps because you're the...
sorry, Chris, are you there?
Hi, everyone. Yes, I think you have a few
Hello.
options.
I can see him now. Yeah, I can see Nitin now. Good. Excellent.
Actually, guys, I think it would be a good idea for everybody to try to turn their video on if you're participating in this. It will make your lives a lot easier, I think.
Yeah, it's a bit difficult to do.
Yeah, good. Nitin, we'll try and keep this to about 3 minutes. So we don't want huge, long answers from you, please. 3 minutes is about what you'd get on a news bulletin if you're lucky. So try and keep your answers to around 30 seconds if you can. That gives you a frame there. Okay, I will, whoops, sorry, I'll set my timer up if I can get that started.
I don't think we need to do that.
Well, just to give me an idea anyway, timings. Okay, recording. Now then, Nitin, you're looking at how drones can provide temporary cellular coverage to areas with special events like concerts or sports, or those suffering a natural disaster. Now, how could they do that?
Yeah, so now if you see, then we have dedicated so-called towers or base station to provide the cellular coverage area. So we are aiming this application for the next generation, that is the well-known 5G technologies. So you can see for the present state, you can have a base station of 25 meters. So you cannot take that base station on a drone and give it to a sports area or a earthquake area. So, but what we are expecting for the 5G system is a base station that is having a size of we can say a suitcase. So that can be easily coupled to the drone. By drone, I didn't mean a drone which is used for taking photos. I mean like a DJI Matrix 100. So it has the capability to take up to 3 kg or 4 kg. So we are expecting the base station to have a weight of 2 kg. So in simple, the drone will carry this base station and it will fly to the area where the service is required. So it is much more for the coming technology or 5G or the beyond technology. It cannot be used for the present system.
That sounds wonderful, but presumably it has a limited...
Hello?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Hello?
Hello, Nitin, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Nitin, hello? Hello? Can you hear me?
Oh. Hello?
Lil, can you...
Yeah, I can hear Nitin, yeah.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Now it's okay. No.
Okay, it's okay. Good. Now, presumably those drones, though, have a limited sort of lifespan up in the air. You're going to run out of power for them. So do you have to have a relay of systems like this?
Yeah, the main problem with the drones is what you said, like it has limited battery with it. So what we are planning is we will have the recharging stations at the ground. So that will be also powered by the solar panels. So that's what we mean by the off-grid solution. So we have dedicated base station that fully working on solar panel, and there will be recharging batteries so that it can harvest most of the energy during the daytime or the sun shining time. So when the drone is out of its battery, then we have to have a backup drone so to go and serve while the other one is charging. So we are having that kind of like an architecture for this system if you want to give the service for the full time. So but if you consider a temporary event like an earthquake or a flood, if you just have to send the drone there to give the service to the people to call the ambulance or police or the regulatories, then you don't have to serve there for 1 hour. You can just send for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, you can take it back. But of course, if you are looking for a long-term application, we have to have the like the renewable source dependent base stations or the recharging stations near to the drone.
Right. Now, this sounds a wonderful idea, and one can see immediately how useful it will be in emergencies. Unfortunately, they're increasing, earthquakes, volcanoes, tsunamis, and so on. But how soon will this be applicable? How soon can it be operative?
Yeah, as I said, we need the low weight or the low size base station for this application. So otherwise, what we can do is we can send drones, but without the base station. Suppose if you see like an earthquake area, there is no base station, so there is no direct connect between the user and the base station. So what we can do is we can send the drone there, and we can act drone as a relay. So that drone will hover at a particular height. So drone will have a direct link with the base station, and drone will have a direct link with the ground user. So it can act as a relay. So that can be an immediate application. But if we tell about drones acting as a base station, then we need to wait until 5G is in action.
Another 5 years, you think, before this is generally applicable?
Yeah, for 5G.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, in a commercial basis, we need to wait maybe for 5 years, but soon the prototypes are in its developing stage. So maybe in 2022 you can see some the field experiments with the rail base stations. I guess in Huawei they are already building the non-core parts. So it's from the British Prime Minister. He has given already rights to Huawei to build the non-core parts for the coming 5G system. So we can expect it to be happen by 2022, hopefully.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Right.
Well done. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Lily, if I can suggest, if you're not going to use your slides, maybe you can unshare, because then we can see everybody better.
Yeah.
Exactly. That'd be better, wouldn't it?
We'll have more space for our video.
Share it. Select contact to share. No, I'll stop sharing there where it is. Good. Excellent. Yeah, that's much better. Okay. Yes, well done. Well done. I think that occasionally I was listening to it. Nitin, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah.
Hi.
I think you occasionally lapse into jargon, like off-grid solution, and saying even little things like you were saying kg, say kilos. Right? Okay. I think it will be easier for people to understand. But yes, otherwise fine. Good.
Thank you very much. It's a very good news story. This is, and it's one of those stories that can really work with pictures, isn't it? If you have the drone there and flying around, it's a wonderful TV story and a great good news story. So I hope you can publicize that well.
Yeah,
okay.
We hope so.
Right now, Eloise. Yeah.
Yes, I'm there.
Can we see you?
Yes,
hi. Good. All right. Okay. So let's do your interview then. Why does Wi-Fi slow down when we are using multiple devices like computers, tablets, and phones?
Well, okay. So there is basically it's related, for example, on the way Wi-Fi works. And let's say that you have in your house lots of people using lots of devices connected. Doesn't need to necessarily be like lots of people, but let's say that you have your computer and plenty of other devices in your house. And the way Wi-Fi works is that every time that a device wants to communicate, wants to transmit something, it needs to listen and see, okay, is there any other ongoing transmission, which means like, is there any other device transmitting at this time? If there is someone transmitting, it needs to wait for a period before trying again. So as you can see, like there is this waiting time if there is someone else transmitting another device communicating at this time. And these, for example, can introduce very important delays. And
we'll have even more devices connected to Wi-Fi in our homes when we have 5G networks and the Internet of Things. So is Wi-Fi in danger of collapsing?
I would say it's not in danger to collapse because we are working on the next generation for Wi-Fi, and we are foreseeing all this Internet of Things cases and all the 5G uses. And for example, there is the technologies in which I'm working on, which are technologies to ensure that we can actually have more devices connected and in a reliable manner, and that we can guarantee that all of them are performing well and perceiving a certain quality in their communications.
Will your improvements mean that the current Wi-Fi equipment will become obsolete?
It's still gonna take some time until they're becoming obsolete. Let's see that what we want to do is to improve the network in general. It doesn't mean that they're gonna become totally obsolete, but there are some other technologies that can operate on top of what we have today. it can really improve the quality of what we have.
So will your improvements be ready in time for 5G networks?
Okay, so like what we are doing now at this moment, it's more focusing on the next generation of Wi-Fi. It might take a few years to be ready, but for the 5G, we already have the current standard, which is Wi-Fi 6. Was already released. There are already some access points ready in the market. So we are working this transition from 5G, and probably we're going to have some more improvements in the next generation.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, I mean, not bad at all, but I think it would be good if you prepared some killer stats, right? So with our improvement, or with the improvements that we are working on, the speed may increase fivefold or fourfold, or do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Because now, if it for instance slows down, then with our improvements, the slowing down will completely completely disappear, or can't see.
Let's come back. Yeah.
Eloise now.
Well, she's still there. Eloise, just one thing I thought. At the start, you virtually repeated what Lily had said, and with my editor's hat on, I could immediately see, okay, we jumped the first 20 seconds of her answer and come in. Well, what happens when you do it is that it's listening out, So you don't have much time. Remember, we've got to keep it limited, and there's always pressure on time in these things. So don't preamble, don't repeat. Yes, there are lots of people using lots of devices, and this is a problem. Lily's already said that in her question. Just go straight in. Well, what happens in this situation you described is, and then you go on. Okay? So maybe you were thinking it through as you were doing it, which is perfectly normal. But try and jump in exactly to the answer rather than sort of repeat the question.
Okay.
Thank you. Good.
Okay.
Now we have Arjan.
Yes, Arjan, are you there?
Hi.
There you are. Right. Hi, Arjan. Okay, so let's try.
Wait a second. I'll shut the door.
Now, we're looking at your work. Lily's already mentioned it, the tethered drone, what I tend to think of as a Zeppelin, but of course it isn't. But it's the nearest thing. A lot of people are tethered. Well, that's something like a balloon, but you're not talking about balloons. Okay, let's start that then. Arjan, you're looking at how to improve a new type of drone, a tethered drone. Can you explain exactly what they are?
Well, it's a type of a drone that we connected with a roof, for example, to a building, to a car. So, as I write it, it solves two problems of the regular drones. The problem of solving the power consumption and the problem of bike fueling, with just connecting the regular drone with a rope to a building, to the top of the building, or to a car, or to a boat.
But it does sound very dangerous. You're talking about high voltages, I think, going up this tether, which could be, I've read, up to 400 meters long.
Yeah.
Now, if things are blowing around, if there's a strong wind, there are lots of wires in cities. You're talking about a car, or it's very possible to get tangled up, isn't it?
Absolutely, and it is specific for different kind of applications. For example, in New York, you can put it on the highest the skyscrapers, so you don't have this problem of interfering with other objects. Or in the middle of the sea, when you connect it to a boat, we don't have for example, high pressure of beams, for example. So it's specific for different kind of application. Yes.
And what sort of things would you use it for? Is it for emergencies? I mean, if you're out of communication but you need to communicate, can you kind of activate it on a boat or what?
Both of them, yes, for emergencies and in case of putting it on the buildings, can use it when, for example, you cannot use regular drones, or when the capacity on the regular runs reached high, and you want to use something temporary. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, it does still sound fairly dangerous to say, oh, well, there's nothing up there. There's a lot up there, actually. There are helicopters, there are birds, there are other things that could interact with it. Can we be absolutely certain this is going to be safe? I mean, you've got electricity in this cable, haven't you?
Yes, absolutely. But people are working on this, and as I said, it's totally new. But in the case of how high can this drone travel, there are some boundaries, there are some standards on it. So we don't have that problem yet. But with about the electricity, there are works to be done. Is it dangerous or not? If some people, randomly move on the top of the building, can do some harm. So there are many works on it, and I hope that we're going to solve these issues.
Now, what's your time frame on this? You've already said you've got safety issues, technical issues, no doubt. When might we see these things appearing?
Oh, as I discussed with the main researchers who are working on this topic, I think it will be available for 6G, not 5G. So maybe 6-7 years, 5 years, yeah, like that.
Right. Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Good, well done. Yes, I think that's a very interesting. Again, it's your work is such visual stuff. I mean, we need the picture of the tethered drone. That would be great, and you can talk to it, you can handle it. That's something that I think would be very interesting for people to see on site. So, if you're offering this to a TV company or something, science of the future, try and get nice visual opportunities there. Try and tether the prototype to a building or to a car even, and let the TV crew come along and see it, because that would be really great to be interviewed beside this thing happening. It's such a good visual story.
Yeah.
Go on. Sorry.
Tim was asking you more or less general questions about drones, but you do something specific. So I suppose that you could have bridged to what you do to improve.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you. There was an interruption. Sorry.
All right. So I was saying that he was asking you general questions about tethered drones, but you could have bridged to your own work with tethered drones, because you do something you're trying to improve them, right?
Something to improve for the regular drones, because I didn't hear you again.
Oh, sorry.
I don't know if it's on my side or...
Yeah, it could be on my side.
Well, let me try and explain that. What Lily was saying there, Ashang, was that although I was asking you general questions, and you answered them fine, it's quite good for you to use the opportunity to talk about specifically what you do.
Okay.
And so bridging across, as we were saying, my role in all this, don't be bashful about it. We want to know quite, we're talking about it in general. This is a new thing. And my role in it is to look at the really important bit of the technology or whatever it is. So don't be bashful about bridging to what you do. After all, you want to praise your own work, or your company's work in this, perhaps a consortium or something. So use the opportunity to push your particular.
Absolutely, and I couldn't answer that because we are at just the beginning stage of this.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, but remember it. It's always good to try that. And now finally, Mashid, I think if you'd like to.
I think I've just measured took my upload speed. It's really low. So
okay. So yeah, let me do it finally then. Mashid, you are there, I think.
Yes.
Excellent, good. Okay, so with Mashid, we're looking at the carbon footprint of the telecommunications industry. Okay, Mashid. Right, so in starting the interview now then. Mashid, what is the carbon footprint of the internet communications industry at the moment?
Actually, since the telecommunication network has some part which is named base stations. Base stations are using the most energy in this telecommunication system, and after I think as time passes, the use of energy is more and more. So using the using the traditional energies in such as power grid will increase the carbon footprint in the the environmental effect in the whole.
Yeah, I see. So they're the big thing we should be worrying about. So how are you trying to improve that or reduce that carbon footprint of the base stations?
Actually, my main role in this project is that I want to introduce solar panels as a renewable source in order to decrease the use of traditional power grid, and in a way that we can use the solar panels as a main source or as a backup for the main grid, such that we can decrease the carbon footprint or the environmental effect of the main grid.
Well, that sounds great, because we know solar is getting more and more productive each time. Each generation of solar panels is more efficient. But what about storing that for night work? I mean, the storage, we're still reduced to old batteries, aren't we? I mean, heavy, clumsy kind of battery systems. What are the new options we have there?
Can you repeat?
Yeah. Sorry, my question was, what solar panels are all fine when the sun is shining, but if you want 24-hour coverage, how are you going to store that power? That is a big problem, I think.
Yes. Actually, there are always the problem of not having the sun at night. So we can use. It is suggested to use storage devices such as batteries or some other kind of storage devices alongside with the PV solar panels, or if we have any other renewable sources alongside these solar panels, the energy which is for example, we have in some hours the energy can be stored in the a storage device such that they can be used during night or during the time that the solar energy is not provided. So the storage devices are the devices that are the tools that can be used during the times that the sun is not available.
Mm-hmm. Now, how are you looking at making solar panels more efficient to power the cellular networks?
If there are some new technologies for solar cells, some new technologies of solar cells that are more cost effective, and also the actually the storage devices can be somehow expensive, so the new technologies of storage devices are also more cost effective. So if we can use the new technologies, and for using new technologies can be cost effective, or we can benefit from these new technologies in order to improve the efficiency of the system from cost and energy points of view.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Okay. Yes, I think I wasn't quite getting to your part of it, because I noticed you working on a software tool.
Yes.
And we needed to hear about that. Perhaps I was not asking you quite the right question there. But good, thank you for that. I think, Lil, did you hear all that?
Yes, but with the slight interruption.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Well, you've all done very well. I realize it's now 5 o'clock and we're due to finish. But well done. It's very often very difficult to start doing interviews when you haven't done it before. But Good. Well done. I think, as we were saying with Arshang, bring in your own work. You know, we were talking rather, you were talking rather generally about, well, use new technologies. Perhaps give us an example of one new technology, because old batteries are, you know, heavy on metal use and so on, and they have a big carbon footprint just to make them. So maybe there are new developments there one could use. But your software tool we needed to hear about, and we didn't. So don't be bashful. Bring it in. My role in all this is to do this software tool to make it all much more efficient, and I will do that. You know, that's what we need to hear from you. So don't be bashful. Take control of the interview. Say what you want to say. Don't be led too much by the journalist. Okay? Well, you've all got such great stories. This is such a positive story for the future. Oh my gosh, we need positive stories. So I do hope you all go out there and publicize your work, because it's very inspiring stuff. Are there any questions?
There's actually one question from Jorge.
Yes.
So
amazing trend in producing short documentary videos. Can you see it, Tim?
Oh, sorry, where's from?
Chat, if you turn the chat on. Look at the chat.
Yes, I've got the chat, but I can't. Where is it?
I think you cannot see. Maybe you cannot see.
Currently,
maybe it was sent to the host or somebody else. Maybe, Eloise, you can read it out.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Currently, no, I have it. Currently, there's a major trend in producing short documentary videos. You only publish results on that. Are there any specific tips to provide attractive and useful materials? Yeah, well, that's a good one. We do some training on podcasting, and we can mention a few points about that, I suppose. Obviously, the enthusiasm of the presenter is important. So don't be too academic, but be enthusiastic. We were mentioning standing in front of with Arshang, you know, stand with your drones or whatever it is. Talk to it. It's actually much easier to be looking at something and pointing and saying, well, this thing does that, and then you look at this cable, it's actually very strong and you can bend it and so on. So you can play with those. Make it quite active rather than being just a straight talk. Make it as active as you can, I think, and show your enthusiasm. Bring in other people. That often enlivens it. With me is the designer, and he's found a great way of doing this. So a few more voices livens the thing up a lot. I was watching a video of actually a drone in which Cambridge were doing, some company in Cambridge, and it was very clumsy because they said we can make phone calls with our drone, and before they put the drone in the air, they made the phone call. Now that's so clumsy. Put the drone up and then say, now this call is going up via the drone. You know, you think, well, they haven't really produced it. They haven't thought it through. So do think your story through. You know, here's the problem. This is how we're solving it. And look, here's the result. Something easy to follow, I think, is an important point in a podcast. Liz, what would you say?
Yeah, I agree. I don't think I have anything to add. This is regarding published result on scientific papers. So who is Jorge, who is the audience?
So it would be technical people.
Technical people. All right, yes. So with technical people, you can afford to be a little bit more technical, but it doesn't mean that you should bore them. But you see, a lot. Can you hear me? Because I'm not sure. I mean, my upload speed is horrible now. Yeah. So you see, it all depends on the audience, right? You've got to keep your audience in mind and gauge what is acceptable for a particular audience. Of course, you know, if you're talking to technical people, you don't need to explain ABC to them, right? Elementary things. So you know your audience and you target your video to your audience. But again, you know, as I said, it doesn't mean, even though they are technical people, it doesn't mean that your video has to be boring or you can afford to make a boring video. Yeah, do you see what I mean? So,
particularly with all your works are so focused on practical outcomes and practical things that I think it's very important to show that, to get that out there, and as I say, it's easier to work with something and talk to it than just sort of recite the abstract or whatever, which doesn't really add anything. What is the point in doing these things? Well, it's to interest and excite people and say, hey, this guy's a good communicator. Gosh, that's a good idea there. And I like the way he's explained it. You know, you're selling yourself as well as the equipment there in a way, aren't you? You know, you're putting yourself out there as a good communicator. So, you know, don't bore the audience. Keep them interested. And as I say, if there are a number of people giving the, you know, who produce the paper, let's have a few voices. Just have, you know, keep it lively and active. We're all so used to good television nowadays. We expect, you know, nice production values, and enthusiasm really counts. I think it helps. So you make sure you have good sound. The mics are working well, because that can be really off-putting, and that you have a good camera position, a nice tripod that holds the camera steady. But apart from those basic things, I think it's telling the story easily through, I mean, you have an academic, a technical audience, so you don't have to explain perhaps too much. But I think it is always good to take them through the process and say, you know, we started off with this, that didn't quite work, we tried this worked, and here's the result. I think that sort of flow is quite important too.
But generally, we think that the public or the general public ought to know about what you do, because this is cutting edge, this is very important, this will be very important for our lives in a couple of years. So do go out and talk to the media in your respective countries, in Europe, wherever you want to, but we need to know about what you do. So please do publicize it. And we hope that this very short presentation may help you in the future. And I think I mentioned that we will send the slides to Elena Gatti, or maybe to Christos. I don't know who's going to distribute them.
No problem, any of us. Yeah,
any of you, so that you could distribute them.
And we may send you some thoughts on podcasting, Lily. We've got a list of podcast tips and things, haven't we? That we may be able to add that for you, Jorge, and for other people if it would be of interest.
That would be great. That would be excellent.
Okay.
Thanks a lot again, Tim and Lily. I think that was the most interactive session we had over the school. So.
Good.
We're glad. We try to make it interactive.
Excellent. So this is the end of our second day of the school. Just you know, for the rest of you guys, for the ESR, we're going to have another one tomorrow, right, on MS Teams this time. For the rest of you guys, thanks a lot for attending, and thanks a lot again, Tim and Lily, for giving us
You're
this
welcome.
tutorial.
You're welcome.
Okay, bye-bye.
Good luck.
Bye.
Bye. Good luck.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Christos, are you there? I think he's not there. Christos left.
Yes.
Now I need to figure out how do I do for stopping
Just
the recorder. I'm just gonna stop recording.
I think it's just something there.
Oh, wait, let me see.
I was so stressful when we asked.
Wait.
Recorder setting is not on the event. It's on top of that event help. Yes, you see that.
Wait just a minute. Let me see.
Recorder setting.
Event stop recording.
You have that?
I think I'm just gonna stop recording.
I think so, but I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
Just don't delete.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Nobody here to help.
I think if you leave the event, maybe it's going to save it.
Do I just stop recording?
Yeah,
Maybe you
usually
can.
I had two options. I have the option to pause and to stop.
Okay, let's pause.
But then if I leave, I'm the host, so I don't save the video.
I think you.
No, don't.
Yeah, well, before you leave. But usually, when in the Zoom meetings, if it's a recording, then you leave the event, so it automatically saves the recording. So I'm not sure about this. I think you should stop.
Let's Google. How to record.
Just send an email to
No, Lorenz is not there anymore.
Can't you send him a text?
Wait.